I'm just going to go through some of the things that we've seen over the past 5 years. I was involved with launching the SOC back in 2005, and I'm constantly working with my team, my SOC team, our customers, to really understand how we can continually improve our service, how we can make it more optimized, how we can make it more cost effective. And that's kind of my key drivers. So I'm just going to run through some experience that we've had and share some of the top requirements and where we're going forward from our SOC focus. So over the past 5 years, we've got some fantastic customers. Obviously, we've got universities that which have a great collaboration, but we also have customers in retail, in manufacturing, in government. We have some large ISPs. We look after some large airports. We have one Formula E customer for all those racing fanatics out there. And they all have obviously different environments, but actually their requirements are all very similar. And what we try and do is, as we've mentioned through it, is always a partnership. How we engage with our customers is a collaborative approach. We work together to ensure that what we're doing meets their requirements, and then we will be able to replicate that to other customers. So if I touch upon kind of our challenges and what we're seeing, and this is a combination from customers that are either looking at a SOC service, whether they are with a SOC provider, another SOC provider, or actually with us. Affordability and justification is still up there. It's whether or not I can actually justify the cost for a 24/7 operation. The people at the top, the guys in the office upstairs saying it's fine, we haven't been breached. And unfortunately, we know what happens when they do get breached. It's a matter of time, and then they investigate in purchasing a SOC service. But we're still seeing that as kind of out there. If you speak to all of our customers, it's having not just available staff during the daytime, out of hours, but also staff that can tackle breaches, that know what an incident response procedure is and contain the breach. That's probably one of the top requirements and challenges our customers are having. And obviously, because the cyber landscape is moving so quickly, it means that they are constantly driving to recruit, train, and retain the right staff. It is a big challenge, even a big challenge for us. Our SOC experts, we have to recruit the right guys, got to make sure they've got the right experience. We have to train them how to work with customers as a collaboration. And then similar to probably yourselves and us, it's retaining them as well, because once we got them trained and they're experts, obviously they are potentially very interesting to other organizations. So we have to make sure they stay with us. We pay the right salaries and give them enough value so they want to justify and obviously be with us. We're still seeing today that probably 99% of our customers, I'll probably say 100% of our customers, have invested in some EDR platform, Microsoft Defender, Sophos, CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, all the big kind of players out there, Cortex XDR. But what we're still seeing, for those who haven't expanded their postures and their security platforms into the network, they're still missing what Gareth mentioned, the two number one threat vectors, which is still phishing, identity-based attacks, and vulnerabilities once that attack actually has taken place. What happens if we are breached? So it's really important that even if organizations do not have a SOC service, that they do have a thorough incident response process, and that the teams involved are fully trained in the event. We still have organizations that have been breached and they still have a very limited response process, which obviously puts them at risk. But again, it's getting the right staff available out of hours, and then getting the senior management teams to buy in, because it's not just the IT teams and the cybersecurity teams, it's also the other departments in the organization. And this is the big topic that we're going to talk about today, is confusion on what's needed, lack of guidance. At the moment, traditionally, the way SOC providers who are using a large data lake or using a SIEM platform, they have often, and even now, they propose a service based upon the size of the environment instead of actually what I need. And what we're terming now in our marketing speak as SIEM or or swim, and I'll explain that in a bit more detail. So we're talking about ingestion versus use cases. So what our customer are telling us is when they're going out to market and they're looking for a service, and they're not at this moment in time looking at replacing their endpoints. They're not looking to replacing their endpoint agents. They're happy with that at the moment. It's in place. They don't have the time. What they want to do is look at how they can ingest network traffic and provide protection against normally different types of behaviors, breaches, attacks. And when speaking to some of the providers out there, the traditional approach is, how many sources do you want to ingest? And the customer's like, oh, well, I don't really know, because I need you to tell me what I get for those sources. And then based upon how many sources, how much ingestion is needed. And again, that should be determined by the outcomes. And then if we do ingest all this information, what do you want us to do with it? And again, the customer's like, well, I need you to tell me what to do with it. And then the question then comes down to how many users do you have? And they're even more confused, thinking, what's users got to do with my service? So if we look at the traditional ingestion-based approach, these are based upon the size of an environment. So it's scoped and it's priced based upon the number of staff endpoints you have, the devices, the firewalls, how much traffic they're creating, the applications and the servers. And what this does, if this whole environment stroke ingestion-based approach, instead of use case outcomes, actually creates a number of challenges. From our experience, when we first launched our SOC service, we was doing something very similar because of the lack of experience that we had. But what we're finding is that if you are basing a SOC service purely on the size of your environment, then it's going to be very expensive. That then means, because you need to deploy a large back-end SIEM or data lake infrastructure, environments are constantly growing, so there's always more data. One of the probably one of the largest cloud SIEM providers in the world, they have a pay-as-you-go model, and that's causing so many problems for organizations where they've invested a X amount of terabytes for that year, but obviously it's expanded dramatically because it constantly goes up. The next challenge is the deployment side. So if you are ingesting data based upon the size of your environments, you're then creating use cases, but then for every single use case, you have to then define an alert. And then for every single alert, you have to define an incident response process and then agree priorities and actions for every single source that you do. So it can become a very, very long time to deploy. And by the time you've deployed it, you're ingesting more data. So this is the feedback we're getting from a lot of our customers, those that are either chosen to work with KHIPU or others that have gone out to market. So what we've been doing over the last 12 months is looking at ways to make our SOC a lot more optimized, because there's no point in ingesting data that's not needed for the service. And I'll explain in a bit more detail. So if we take, if we compare log-based versus use case. So in a log-based environment, as I mentioned, all logs are sent to the SOC environment, to the SIEM, to the data lake, and then use cases are defined. In a use case ingestion model, what we do is we present the use cases and the outcomes you will get. You will then decide which ones are relevant to your organization, and then we define what logs are needed to deliver them. Nice and simple. So if you look at this diagram, for example, you can see straight away that in this real life scenario, where traditionally you'd need 60, 70, 80, 90 terabytes, by delivering packs of use cases and starting a lower entry level with real use cases that are viable to you, we can actually provide a SOC service a lot more optimized and a lower cost point, because we're only using a third, if not less, of the infrastructure needs to deliver the service. And then at your pace, as Doomy mentioned, we can then start adding more and more use cases as we progress and as you get more confident and looking at other areas that you want to protect to reduce your attack surface. So if I take very crudely, if I take a number of use cases, and then if we say, okay, right, look at those use cases. So going back to the ingestion log source based approach, instead of actually the size of the environment. You can see, right, if I look at, say, phishing response, so what sort of risk is that? That, for me, that's very, very high risk. Someone's opened an email, someone's downloaded a PDF, someone's got my credentials via a phishing website. We would classify that as high. The good thing about that type of response, actually, the ingestion needed to deliver that is low. Therefore, the associated cost is low. If we look at port scans and drop traffic, as Gareth mentioned, these are really informational. These things happen every day. And that's really the role of my firewall and my perimeter infrastructure to ensure I'm protected. If I start ingesting that type of traffic, because it's so noisy and because it's so high, actually the ingestion needs to do that would actually hike up the price significantly. If we look at Impossible Traveler, I'll probably say that again, as mentioned in KHIPU University's presentation, that is a very, very high profile, high risk, because it shows that Matt was 1 minute he was logging in the UK, and then 3 minutes later he's logging in from China. Yes, that's an active account takeover, severity high, but actually to deliver that use case, the ingestion is low. Similar to malware response and leaked stolen credentials, they're all very, very high, but the ingestion needed can be low. So if we look at some real life use cases, so we have an entry-level SOC pack which has 25 use cases. Applying those use cases with the automations that have been mentioned previously, we actually have environments where we have 2,000 staff and they're only ingesting 24 terabytes. We have environments that have 1,000 staff that are only ingesting 7 terabytes. So you can see by optimizing and agreeing what the use cases are, you can make best use of how you are delivering the service and not ingesting unnecessary data. The benefits are very opposite to, obviously, the SIEM approach, is that the settlement configuration is a lot quicker because we've already defined the sources, we've defined the use cases, we know what the responses are, there's less data lake infrastructure needed, less SIEM infrastructure needed. And what's really cool about this is that we can then provide you a roadmap for controlling your costs, because we're going to say, right, for use case X, it's going to ingest terabyte Y. You can then start building a nice journey on what use cases you want now and what you want later, and then you can start building your plans going forward and start putting together the budgets needed to what's needed now and start addressing your long to medium time requirements. So moving forward on the use case and outcome based approach, what we do, and obviously customers that are with us now are familiar with this, is that by defining the use cases and the outcomes for each of our SOC portfolio. And when I mean our SOC portfolio, we have a range of managed detection response services, whether you want us to take control and remove and provide a complete turnkey solution, or you want us to leverage your existing investments. We work with you to understand, okay, well, these are the use cases you get. We then map them to your requirements and challenges. We then prioritize and look at what's key to your environments. We launched our SOC in a Box service portfolio 2 years ago, and it's been fantastic for organizations that are quite new to 24/7. It's a quick way of getting a service up and running and allows you to expand at your pace. And again, having a clear and affordable price structure for each stage allows you to move and expand at your pace. And really what we're trying to say here is that from our experience in working with collaboration with all of our customers like Canterbury, Christchurch University, Kingston University, WITS, it's enabled us to provide a very clear, defined and scalable SOC journey, which is really what our customers are after. And some fantastic references to talk. And again, the great thing about, whilst we have organizations of different verticals here today, the great thing about universities is a collaboration, and they're more happy to speak to you and share experiences and how they're doing things going forward. And that's me, Chloe. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Matt. You do have a couple of questions, if you're ready for them. Yep. So the first one is, what are the common types of threats that organizations should be most concerned about?
Well, as Dewey mentioned, and as Gareth mentioned, Impossible Traveler is obviously a top one out there. That's an obvious one. We're seeing that everywhere. The user-based threats are probably the most common type of threat vector that we see. Phishing is still, 7 years on, we're still selling awareness services to our customers because phishing is still a major problem. People are still clicking, opening up links, downloading attachments and causing chaos. And then coupled with that is the vulnerabilities. So patching is still not happening. There's still devices out there that are running end of support or vulnerable platforms. And I'd probably say even today, they're the top two that we see everywhere.
Perfect. I hope that answered your question. And then the final question is, are you able to share any real life experiences of ingestion-based and use case-based approaches?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I can. So you probably saw the slide which we had 24 terabytes. That was the 7 terabytes. So that's a customer that's been with us for 24 months. They're still a sizable organization. 1,000 for us is what we sort of banned as sort of small. But when they were going out to market, they looked at what we call a traditional SIEM SOC provider. And when they were first quoted based upon their size of environment, they were looking at about 4 times amount ingestion it needed to deliver the service. The use case approach shows that by defining what we believe is the right approach, so use cases for protection against ransomware, protection against phishing, protection against a possible traveler, and then delivering them to them and showing what terabytes needed, we actually provide a service for 7 terabytes. So it really is an effective way for organizations to really get on board with a SOC based upon a use case approach rather than data only.
Great, perfect. I think that is all the questions I can see, but if anyone else has any other questions or wants to discuss anything further, Matt will be online after the sessions have finished as well if you want to chat further with Matt. So
thank you, everyone.
Matt.